Well, let's do a little test here and see how the audio sounds. And, well, I'm doing the lonely repairman thing again. Duke is absent again. So we'll talk about that here in a few minutes, but let's see if anybody shows up. I'm going to go ahead and check. I just got my YouTube notification. And let me do the normal drill here. Let me check my Facebook notification, see if I Facebook. There's at least one person watching, so that's a good thing. Let's see here. Oh, yep, I'm live on Facebook too. So that's always a good thing, and I think I'm live on Twitter as well. All right, folks. Let me hear from you in the comments. Audio sound okay? Can everybody hear me? Is there anybody in there? It's going to be like a Pink Floyd song. I'll tell y'all right up front, title of the show is Quickie, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Not going to be on here long because there's not that much to talk about. And Mr. Lowry is absent again. Hello, Val Baker. Hello, Bruce. Nice to see you. Howdy. So I'm doing double duty again. I don't have a guest host because there was like nothing going on much political around the Bossier area this week, so not too much, but let me put a little text commentary out there. Let's see. Howdy, folks. Good to see y'all and have y'all watching. So we've only got a few things that we're going to talk about. And I've got another podcast that I actually want to watch here in a little bit, oddly enough, about fishing. But anyway, so we'll chat about a few things tonight. And like I said, it's going to be a pretty short session tonight. Let's see. Good to see y'all. And thanks for watching. All right. There we go. Yes, we have text messages working. All right. We got about 20-something people watching. So I'll tell you what, folks, I'm going to go ahead and go to the countdown. I'm going to do this early. I'm going to go ahead and play the intro. Y'all know the drill. I'll be back in about 3.5 minutes. So make some popcorn and a good stiff drink. We're actually going to talk about Alex Jones tonight and Tucker Carlson of all things. And, well, Elon, let Alex Jones back on Twitter or X or, well, whatever they're calling it. So anyway, we're going to talk about that. And we've got a little bit of election news from Caddo Parish that's important because there's some very interesting decisions being made in this case that might affect the way the law is written and the way ballots are counted and all that in the state of Louisiana. So it could be pretty even. Hello, Judy Madden. Let's see. Charlie and Judy East. Good to see y'all. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the countdown button. We'll get this show on the road a little bit early. I'll be back in about 3.5 minutes. Y'all stay tuned.
If folks knew a lot of the back office on the politicians that they think walk on water, they would be shocked. There's an old wound from a knife in my back that just is giving me heck lately, and it's just really irritating, so I have to kind of wiggle around a little bit.
Well, I've not heard my name in stable or Baton Rouge in stable in the same sentence in a long time.
And I titled it A Shot Across the Bow of the Good Old Boys.
Just, they feel helpless, they don't feel heard, they have nowhere to turn.
Some Republicans as well believe that government has the answers. And let me tell y'all something. I don't know anything government does well. Nothing.
And aren't there laws that say that you have public meetings so that the public can have accountability of their elected officials?
They're making a little bit of progress, but I would definitely have to give the race to Caddo Parish right now.
I don't know. Is there anybody from Plain Dealing watching, you think?
As a member of the media, I'm very concerned about what I've just heard.
Did you or did you not requisition some money to fight against this or for it?
We hired a lobbyist and it cost us $15,000. We were opposed to HB 630.
So for this week, folks, the cockroach of the week, according to bossierwatch and Duke Lowry and Rex Moncrief, is
Raymond Croon's legislative assistant, Allie Feaster-Smith. Thank you, Allie.
Well, I'm not thinking Star Wars at all. I'm thinking zombie apocalypse.
No way it
Okay,
was not
okay.
David. You know it wasn't David Montgomery. David
Okay.
ain't gonna jump off in there with Chris. He ain't
Okay.
gonna do it. He'd as soon spit on him as he would even look at him. Man, this is a Mickey D's Krispy Kreme week. Didn't you know? Who's paying y'all? And if you're driving on the roads, are you safe?
It's on the road, yeah.
Well, I know you're on the road, but I mean, is this all folks coming from the border down there?
Yeah, it's going to border. It's actually going to Mexico, the buses.
Doesn't mean they interpret it the same way that I do. For instance, the Second Amendment. I take it very literally. That's been interpreted different ways in the court system all the way up to SCOTUS. Yeah, that's only going to cause more division that he claims he doesn't want to cause. And it's only going to cause more suspicion. We're still right now combined on both pages and YouTube at 264 people watching. That is amazing, folks. Coleman Project, the Walker Place deal, through conscious, shocking action. The purpose of their actions was to stop plaintiffs, being the Earl Coleman and associated groups not, from developing Walker Place. But here's the key thing, which in turn would enrich sitting city council members Scott Irwin and David Montgomery Jr.
You hit the button. Does that mean that people are seeing us sitting here talking and chatting?
In theory, it's an every week thing. We got to double check and make sure it's like a miracle any of this actually works. This Bossier Watch live broadcast is brought to you by the Outdoor News, fishing and outdoors for our area. Acadiana Mortgage, over 23 years in the mortgage business. Pelican Training and Consulting. Smarter Geek, making technology easier. And the many supporters, donations, and folks sharing information and watching out for Bossier. Now, grab your popcorn and a drink. Here we go. Okay, I made it through a countdown. I got a notice there for a second that said the connection had dropped. But I'm checking. I'm still show that we're live on YouTube, Facebook, and I'm looking at Twitter right now on my phone. So it looks like we're still alive. Let's see. Anyway, so like I said before we went to the break, Duke is on another secret squirrel mission, so he'll be back next week and hopefully be able to give us some sort of report and let us know what he's been up to. All right, thank you, Judy Madden. Thank you, Bruce. Glad to know that y'all can hear me loud and clear. This is going to be a relatively short show, kind of a slow political week in Bossier. Wasn't a city council meeting, not too much going on, but we do have a little bit to talk about, although it's not Bossier-centric, really. So I appreciate any and all comments, when you're sitting here doing this show alone and don't have somebody to bounce the ideas back off of. Commentary absolutely does help. Okay, so let me get my notes pulled up and we'll kind of get started here. All right, so the first thing that we want to talk about this week is the Nicholson versus Whitehorn appeals court ruling that I believe was just handed down today. Now, Jeff Sadow's got a great article on Bossier Views that he just released. And then, of course, John Siddle's released that, the news stations have, and all that. But let's talk about that. So, the appeals court ruled 3-2 to uphold Judge Black's ruling in the Nicholson versus Whitehorn lawsuit over the sheriff's race in Caddo Parish. Now, as most of you know, and we've discussed multiple times on the show, that race was decided by one single vote. And the catch is that there were enough discrepancies or potential irregularities, let's say, in the voting that the judges so far have ruled after a lot of them recuse themselves, but anyway, have ruled for Nicholson for this to proceed on, and that there needed to be another election. Hello, George Bryce. Hey, Mr. Jeter, good to see you. Robin, Thomas. Let's see, who else? Jessica. All right. So anyway, again, for those of you that are just tuning in, kind of a little slow Bossier week, so we're going to talk about a few things and then pretty much call it a night. Duke will be back next week. All right, so I've only said that about 10 times. All right, so the first thing I want to do is, of course, Whitehorn's going to appeal this, and so it's going to go to the Louisiana State Supreme Court. But I want to take a look at the demographics of this, so give me just a second. And let me set up my screen. And this has actual bearing on Bossier Parish, because what's going on with this court case could potentially change the way that elections are done. So anyway, let me get this ruling pulled up here. Okay. And let me click a little buttons here. I'm having to do triple duty tonight. So let me click a few buttons over here. Let's see. Option click. And I'll zoom out just a little bit. Okay. So this is from KTBS. And here's a ruling. The second, I know it may be a little small for some of you, of course, and for those of you listening to the podcast version, the Second Circuit Court of Appeal has sided with the district court ruling and calling for a new election for Caddo Parish Sheriff. And of course, it's going to go to the Supreme Court. Candidate John Nicholson sued Henry Whitehorn and elections officials over voting irregularities after they were discovered in the November 18th runoff election. Now, Whitehorn was certified, and this is important because the Secretary of State's office, the Board of Election Supervisors for Caddo Parish, and the Secretary of State's office certified this election. But listen to these quotes. So, the court's decision was handed down at 11:46 a.m. today. It was a 3-2 vote with judges Jeff Cox, Jeff Robinson, and Craig Marcotte voting in favor, and judges Shonda Stone and Marcus Hunter dissenting. And that's going to be important here in a second. We're going to literally see. Quote, "There is no dispute that this election was decided by one vote. Clearly, irregularities existed in the voting for the office of Caddo Parish Sheriff," the opinion states. And the court rejected Whitehorn's argument that Nicholson was required to provide compelling evidence that is sufficient to change the result. Whitehorn's attorneys also argued that Whitehorn didn't do this in a timely manner, and you're going to read this in the dissenting opinions here. And that's interesting, and Jeff Sadow had a good take on that, although I kind of already figured it out, that there was no way for Nicholson to know that these irregularities would have existed. Therefore, how can you dispute these irregularities in a timely manner when you don't know that they existed? It's a chicken and egg thing. Which came first? All right. But anyway, so Judge Cox says, and I quote, "In light of this case, I believe our legislature should review our election code in order to address future challenges caused by illegally cast votes." So that's Judge Jeff Cox. Now, in her dissenting opinion, Judge Shonda Stone said, "There is no dispute. Mickelson did not challenge the votes prior to the election or at the polls." And Judge Marcus Hunter said, "It's virtually impossible to conduct an election without some irregularities and illegalities taking place." Now, y'all have heard Duke and I go back and forth over election integrity and all that over the last couple of years. And although Duke and I generally agree, at least on the principles of it, we disagree slightly. And my deal is you can't take all of the irregularities out of it as long as you have humans counting it. If we have machines counting it, well, we can't trust the machines because we can't trust the code because we can't review the code. It's proprietary code. So we're all in a quandary. But this case is actually making a good point of it. You're right, Greg. Greg Bell says, what is an election? Now, I did a little copying and pasting. This is from KTBS. So in their defense, well, you're right. I did copy and paste it. So in their defense, they had a typographical error in there. Shame on the news media. All right. Larry James Hawkins says, hello, Rex. I'm here for your Lone Ranger short segment. That's right. I have a fishing podcast I really, really want to watch here in a little bit, so we're not going to spend long here, although I do appreciate everybody watching. Okay. But I want y'all to read this quote here in yellow. And again, I realize it's kind of small, but again, so Judge Marcus Hunter says it's virtually impossible to conduct an election without some irregularities and illegalities taking place. And Shonda Stone says Nicholson didn't challenge the votes prior to the election or at the polls. He couldn't have known that first to challenge them. Now, interestingly, these are the two dissenting opinions, the two judges. I'm just going to leave it at that for a minute and just sit here and have just a moment of silence as I switch screens again, because I want to talk about, let me hit this button here. I want to show you, we're going to go do a little bit of a time machine. I'm going to play you Henry Whitehorn's address to the public 12 days ago when the initial lawsuit was filed. And I don't know if any of you have seen this, so I'm going to go through it and hit pause and all that sort of thing, and we'll kind of do a little commentary on it as we go. So let me click that button. So again, we're going back in time. This is, I don't know, about a week and a half ago, nearly 2 weeks. But listen to this.
Good evening, and thank you all for being here this evening. Many of you have contacted the campaign and requested an interview regarding the results of the election. I felt that this was the best way to get everybody together and make this statement one time. You all know that a petition contesting the election results has been filed. So there's not a whole lot that I can say, but what I will say is this. The people of Caddo Parish have spoken, and you decided that during this time when we're in a crime crisis, you wanted a sheriff that had 40 plus years of law enforcement experience. Being a public servant is something that I have dedicated my life to doing. Listen, folks, we won the election.
Listen up
and
here.
The recount shows that I remain the winner of this election. I remain the winner of the sheriff race. I was always taught that the person that gets the most votes wins.
Listen carefully.
That's what I was taught. Even if that's by 1,000 vote or 1 vote.
All right, now I'm going to stop it right there. Even if it's by 1,000 votes or 1 vote. Now, on its merits, what he's saying is correct. I mean, that's the way it is, 50% plus 1. The problem is, nowhere in this speech does he mention the voting irregularities. As a matter of fact, I'll just throw it out there. There is a word that folks like to use when they're talking about election integrity and people being counted. The word is disenfranchised. Nowhere in here, in this speech, in this public address, does he mention the word disenfranchised. What about the people whose votes may or may not have been counted in this election? All right, so the problem is not that he lost the count was 1 vote for him and there's been a lawsuit filed. He's completely ignoring, potentially disenfranchising voters because of the voting irregularities. He doesn't even address that in here. So let's listen on for another minute.
But now we are saying that 1 vote doesn't matter. The Secretary of State has certified this election. They have certified that I won this election. Had a recount had a recount shown that I lost this election, I would not have filed a lawsuit.
I can't say for sure whether it would have or not, but I think that's a lie. I feel quite sure that if it had been reversed on the recount and gone the other way and he had lost by 1 vote, I bet you anything they would have filed a lawsuit. Now, maybe he's being sincere, but the fact that he doesn't mention the voting irregularities that were clearly part of this election, I can't see that as an honest statement. So the other thing that I want to show you is, let's check this out. Let me see if I can get over here. I'm going to click some buttons. And I forgive me if I can't keep up with all the comments. Let's see. We'll get to them here in a minute. So, all right, let's see. I got to click screenshots and click this button and click that button. All right, and I am looking for cut number 18. Okay. All right, so let me put this up here and hit this button and this button. All right, let's look at some comments. So Bruce says the most legal votes. Thomas Shea says, bet his position would have changed if he lost by 1 vote. I think you're right, Thomas. Bruce says, no concerns for the rule of law, only the rule of 1. And look, like I've said before, I don't have any dog in this hunt. Really, I don't care who's Caddo Parish Sheriff, as long as they start, helping address some of the crime wave going on across the river over there. I think either candidate would do that. And probably Whitehorn's got more law enforcement experience. I mean, aside from the whole CAO of the Perkins administration debacle, aside from that, he does have more law enforcement experience. Of course, Nicholson is a lawyer, so he's got law experience. And, being sheriff it's an elected position. You don't necessarily have to have law enforcement. So it's not like I have any dog in the hunt. I really don't care which one of them gets elected. But it's the principle of it and the disingenuousness of ignoring the fact that the irregularities went on. So I've got up on the screen here. Val Baker says, let's see, he didn't do anything as CAO in Shreveport. Yeah, arguably he made it worse over there, but I don't know. George Bryce says, since he was a failure as SPD chief, I can't believe he got as many votes as he got. Well, interestingly, it's probably going to the Louisiana Supreme Court. My guess is we'll see that they're probably going to call for another election, and then it's going to be on both Nicholson and Whitehorn to really turn out the voters this time. And I'll bet you anything it's a pretty high percentage this time. But we'll see. So anyway, I've got a screenshot. This is from the lawsuit itself. I'm going to post it, or from the ruling. I'm going to post it on bossierwatch on the Facebook page after the show, or maybe in the morning or whatever. But anyway, the highlighted portion of it's what's interesting. The Caddo Parish Registrar of Voters, Dale Sibley, testified regarding the absentee by mail ballot allegations. Sibley went through multiple redacted ballots and confirmed that some 5 to 7 of the accepted ballots had no witness signature and just, quote, just slipped through the cracks, unquote. He noted that such ballots are normally rejected. Sibley testified that fully interdicted individuals should have been purged from the voter list. So I think there were at least 4 people who shouldn't have been allowed to vote at all. They were felons without their voting rights restored. And they were on the voter list, and they got through the cracks. And again, there's no way Nicholson would have known or been able to know that to dispute those ballots. Now, I can also tell you that and again, you've heard me say it multiple times across different shows, but as a former member of the Board of Election Supervisors in Bossier, I can tell you that I can honestly say that I very, very, very seriously doubt that any of the mail-in ballots slipped through the cracks on the Bossier side while I was on the Board of Election Supervisors without a witness signature. There were many of them they had to go through 4 or 5 of us, and we had a process for going through them and reviewing them and then passing them to the next person and letting that person review it. And if there was one that was questionable, we all discussed it and we tried to give the voter the benefit of the doubt. But if they didn't have a witness signature, they're out of there, rejected. So this quote just slipped through the cracks. That really calls into question not just the sheriff's election, but every race that happened or has happened in Caddo Parish. Now, I don't know what the count is on the rest of the elections over there or the ballot initiatives or whatever. There may have been a far enough separation that it would have to be a really high percentage of irregularities and voter fraud, honestly, that it, probably wouldn't make a difference. But it does start calling into question the whole process that Louisiana uses. And it calls into question election integrity as a whole in Caddo Parish. This quote right here just slipped through the cracks. Now, we also have talked about it. We have no way of knowing which way those ballots may have gone if they would have voted one way, for Whitehorn, or if they would have voted for Nicholson. There's literally no way of knowing that with the secret ballot. But it's still enough that, especially with a 1-vote margin, could have swung it either way. All right. So feel free to comment away. There's my soapbox for that. Let's see. And it's going to be interesting because let's assume that the Supremes in Louisiana decide that they're going to have a new election. What's the process for that new election going to look like? I mean, how are the voters going to be able to trust that process? What is the Secretary of State's office? And depending on when the election is, I guess the incoming Nancy Landry, how are they going to try to do that? Because so far, I mean, the Secretary of State's office certified that election and the recount. So how are they going to be able to reestablish trust in the process for the Caddo Parish voters and, honestly, for the rest of the state? All right, let me take a look at some comments. Paul Johnson says, anywhere Democrats run the show. This is not so much a Democrat and Republican thing. It is incompetence. Honestly, this may happen sometimes if it were the exact opposite. Mike Spence is saying, well, it's certified, but there are irregularities. I mean, it's in the lawsuit. Again, I'll post this later after the show and y'all can read the whole thing. Mr. Jeter says, I 100% agree. No ballots without a witness signature would have been counted by the Bossier Parish Board of Elections supervisors. You and I served together, and we were consistent in all our decisions. I 100% agree. Most of you, I may not have mentioned on the show before, but Mr. Jeter was on the Board of Election Supervisors with me. He's, of course, was a representative of the DPEC, the Democratic Election Committee. I was there as a representative of the RPEC, the Republican, and I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I trust Mr. Jeter's motives and trust his judgment. And there were many times where we had to sit there and look at those ballots together. And I can honestly say I don't think any of them would have just slipped through the cracks while we were there. Oh, and Mr. Jeter says he's still on the board. Okay. Who do they have who else is on the board? So I know Jill Sessions is, Stephanie Agee is there as a registrar, Jill's there as the clerk of court, and you're there on the DPEC side. Who's the governor's appointee and who's supposed to be there on the RPEC side? Do you happen to know off the top of your head, Mr. Jeter? All right. George Bryce says, when does Prater's term expire? That's a good question. I don't know when it officially expires and how that'll be handled legally. Val Baker says next year sometime. All right. So, any thoughts and comments y'all want about this? Again, I know it's Caddo Parish stuff, but it absolutely has bearing on how elections are going to be handled and the trust in our election process here in the good old state of Louisiana going forward. So again, it's a very, very interesting thing to watch. All right, so let me see. This is going to be fun for, well, maybe fun for some of you. Let me put this meme up. So, you know, I think we shared last week the Elon Musk situation over there, where basically he literally told the advertisers who wanted to try to squelch what he considers free speech over on Twitter or X, he literally told them to go F themselves. I'll save you all the expletives tonight. But he's done it again. He has actually reinstated Alex Jones on Twitter. And that's interesting. And so we'll talk about that some more here in just a second. So let's see. Oh, thank you, Mr. Jeter. Says Robert Wright for the RPEC and Jerry Chandler. Mr. Jerry's still there as the governor appointee. Jerry's a good guy too. And I know Robert Wright, he's pretty much full of integrity too. So I would, of course, trust Robert Wright on the RPAC side. Mike Collier says he thinks it's Doug Rimmer. Who's been showing up to the meetings and who hasn't? All right. So let's talk about Elon Musk for a minute and Twitter and why that matters. Now, to be honest, I do pay attention to Twitter. I don't pay attention to Twitter or X as much as I do Facebook and some of the other platforms, but I do go over there and watch some things. And well, he's let Elon Musk back on there. So I'm going to pull up a video real quick and we're going to watch a couple of videos. So let me switch screens again. And, well, let's hear from Benny Johnson, who is an on-air pundit, full disclosure, relatively right-wing guy. Well, he's pretty right-wing guy. But let's listen to this for a second because I want you to listen to CNN, their response to letting Alex Jones back on Twitter. And we'll talk some more about some of Alex Jones's more controversial statements here in a minute. So here we go.
Meltdown on CNN, where CNN's fact checker was brought on to have a panic attack live on air and piss himself. Watch.
A lot of people attack Musk on Twitter. I trend all the time. Hey, if you're such an absolutist on free speech, bring back Alex Jones. I understand that if he did that, the ADL and others would really be able to probably shut down Twitter. So I understand that he needs to go through a process before he does that.
So that was right-wing extremist Alex Jones days ago making the case to Tucker Carlson that users want him back on X, the platform formerly known as Twitter. He was banned for posts that were previously cited for violence, harassment, and hate speech. This morning, though, he's back on X.
All right, so I want to clarify that Alex, I used to listen to Alex every once in a while. I can take him about 10 or 15 minutes at a time, and then I got to shut off. To be honest, and this will stomp on some toes of my Republican and conservative friends, but, a lot of the right-wing commentators, Rush Limbaugh was great as far as, talk radio and what he did for talk radio and the conservative movement. But I could only take Rush Limbaugh about 15 or 20 minutes at a time before having to turn it off. He didn't say things nearly as controversial as Alex Jones has, but where Alex most recently got in trouble and got deplatformed is the families of the Sandy Hook shooting victims. Alex Jones claimed very vehemently that it was a staged event. It was not real. Now, I'm pretty darn sure it was a real shooting. And unfortunately, those kids did die. And the families had to go through all of that. So I'm not advocating what Alex Jones claimed. But he did claim for a long time that was a staged deal. The families of the victims sued him. They won $1 billion, and basically he's teetering on bankruptcy and all this sort of thing, and everybody deplatformed him. And lo and behold, Elon Musk, as we all know, famously took over Twitter, converted it to X or whatever. And Musk had said about a year ago that he was not going to let Alex Jones back on. He let Trump back on, but he was not going to let Alex Jones back on. But apparently he has changed his mind. All right, here we go.
Thanks to the new owner, Elon Musk. Musk did a very unscientific poll of asking people on X if Jones should be reinstated. 70% said yes.
And overnight, Jones and Musk took part in an audio chat on X, which included Vivek Ramaswamy, Mike Flynn, and Andrew Tate, a self-proclaimed misogynist influencer. CNN correspondent Donny O'Sullivan joins us now. I'm having a bit of a tough time keeping it. Go ahead, Donny. Please tell us what we need to know before I start talking.
Well, I think if you bring back up that full screen there of that cast of characters who are on that Twitter.
All right, so I'll spare y'all watching too much of CNN, and full credit to Benny Johnson. If you don't subscribe to him on YouTube, you should, because he's got some pretty good content sometimes, pretty entertaining. But here's the deal. As far as Alex Jones is concerned, I mean, it honestly doesn't matter to me one way or the other whether, they let him back on Twitter or give him his own platform, or he gets sued into oblivion, and has to file for bankruptcy. But the problem is it's like Duke and I with just, our little bit of reach here with bossierwatch. And again, we appreciate everybody that watches. We don't have near the reach that Elon Musk has or Alex Jones has or anybody like that. But we still have to be careful. Y'all have heard me joke about it, about what we post on various platforms. And you've heard me say, we've learned our lesson that usually it's for copyrighted material, honestly, but we have to be careful of what we say. And you've heard me, let our watchers know that, hey, if we get shut down on Facebook, I'm not stopping the stream anymore. We are streaming on Twitter and we are streaming on YouTube. So hopefully we'll be able to continue on one of the three platforms. And if all three of them simultaneously shut us down for things we say or whatever, or somebody, enough people report us if they don't like us talking about First Bossier, or we say something about Mike Johnson that pisses people off, we'll still keep doing the show, and I'll just post it to the website if everybody deplatforms us. So it is a little bit of a whack-a-mole thing, but again, that's the brilliance of the internet, that there are multiple platforms and there's always somewhere to go. We would prefer, and the reason we push Facebook so much and now YouTube is that's where everybody is right now. I mean, there's a lot of people on TikTok's short form. I'm going to start releasing some bossierwatch videos on TikTok, but the reason we focus on Facebook and YouTube is that's where you guys are. That's where most people still are, and so that's where our focus is. But getting back to the kind of pure philosophical standpoint of it, Elon has said he wants Twitter or X to go back to being the town square, and that he's an absolutist in free speech. Well, it's kind of like me with guns. I'm an absolutist in the Second Amendment. I believe everybody has the right to own firearms and bear arms and defend themselves. Everybody. If Musk is going to be if Elon's going to be an absolutist on free speech, then he's got to let people like Alex Jones back on. Now, no matter how crazy he is, again, I can take about 10 minutes of Alex Jones, maybe less. But he does say some things, and he does get some things right. So I'm going to switch over here, and he was on Tucker Carlson. Now, if you hadn't watched Tucker Carlson over on X, Tucker has just announced the Tucker Carlson Network, TCN he's calling it. And so they're launching a full platform, website, the whole 9 yards, subscription model, some of it paid for deal. And he's basically fixing to give Fox a run for their money. And he's got a much bigger audience than Fox ever thought about having. I mean, one video for Tucker gets more views than all the other networks combined. One video. So let's watch a couple of minutes of Tucker here.
Bolstered, and in other cases demolished, and you're definitely in the second category. So I want, for people who've made it this far, the people around the country have really succeeded in making you disreputable. And the whole point, of course, is people won't listen to you. So we thought it'd be interesting to start with a series of on-tape predictions.
Listen to this.
Some of which are so precise and so prescient that it makes the hair on my arms stand up. And I'm being sincere, and our viewers are about to see what I'm talking about. Here is a list of things that you called ahead of time.
By the middle of September, that the new policy's being written, you will all have to wear masks again.
Notice the date.
So will airport employees.
August the 18th
It's
of 2023.
happening. Mask mandates are officially back.
We know the Joint Chiefs of Staff wanted to blow up airliners. Baltimore
July
Sun,
21st,
where you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade
2001.
Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an out...
Oh, no. Hold on just a second. Dadgummit.
The White House and
man they need.
We're looking at a giant war
Let me-
in February.
let me start that
Time,
again.
But 10 years ago, people were not thinking that way. Alex Jones was. And so we thought it'd be interesting to sit
All
down
right, sorry about
and
that.
talk to Alex Jones,
Misclicked.
the man, who joins us now in our studio. Alex Jones, thank you.
Wow, Tucker, it's great to be.
Predictions. That
All right, here we go.
Some of which are so
Sorry
precise
about that, folks.
and so prescient that it makes the hair on my arms stand up. And I'm being sincere.
All right,
and
but
I'm
listen to the one about 9/11 and notice the date.
List of things that you called ahead of time.
He was talking about this in
middle of
August of
September,
2001.
The new policy's
Listen
being
to
written.
this.
You will all have to wear masks again, and so will airport employees.
It's happening. Mask mandates are officially back.
We know the Joint Chiefs of
Right
Staff
here,
wanted to
listen.
blow up airliners.
And look at the
Baltimore
date.
Sun, where if you let some terrorist group do it, like the World Trade Center, we know who to blame. And if there was an outside threat like a bin Laden, who was a known CIA asset in the 80s,
This group and its leader, a person named Osama bin Laden.
he's the boogeyman they need.
We're looking at a giant war in February right now. I predict the Russians are going to roll in.
He called the Ukraine
They're already
war.
there. They're going to roll in.
With attacks across Ukraine, which is the size of Texas.
It really was the Iraqis. That's just because they're getting ready to invade Iraq. And what a beautiful setup.
Those 9/11 clips are crazy. I'm actually bothered by the precision of them. I'm not accusing you of being behind 9/11. But how could you, in July of 2001, call
Listen to
that?
this.
You said they're going to have airliners fly into the World Trade Center and they're going to blame a guy called Osama bin Laden. Now, leaving aside what actually happened.
And we'll probably
How
get
could
kicked
you
off
have
of
known
Facebook for me showing this.
Well, in
so
the
I can't
longer
blame it
clips,
on Duke
it's a
tonight.
multi-hour show from July 25th,
So I'm going to stop it right there because you can go to Twitter, look up Tucker Carlson. Again, whether you believe any of Alex Jones's conspiracy theories, that's a very interesting interview because he actually did predict 9/11. He predicted the invasion of Iraq before it was ever publicized. He did predict the Ukrainian invasion by Russia before it was ever in the mainstream news, and people called him crazy. Now, Alice Boyer says he's right about Sandy Hook, too. He has since recanted that, Alice, and sincerely recanted it. Of course, it's costing him millions of dollars, but I don't think he's completely right about Sandy Hook. I do not think that was a staged event. I don't think that they, shipped all those people off to a foreign country and they're, living on islands drinking Mai Tai somewhere. I just really don't believe that. But he is right about a lot of things. But regardless of that, he shouldn't be deplatformed for that. I mean, lots of people in the history of our country have said really outlandish things. It's just that there was not, I hate to say it because I'm a tech guy, but there was not a conspiracy of tech giants to try to thwart and suppress the speech platforms that we all have available now and all take for granted. And this has really come about just, really in the last 6 or 8 years that it's coming about. So it is interesting to go check this out and check out Tucker Carlson's new network because I think that is going to be interesting. And again, sometimes Tucker posts stuff that I'm like, but he's got a lot of good stuff. And he's willing to tackle, kind of like we do here in Bossier sometimes, he's willing to tackle topics that really nobody else wants to talk about. All right. So I noticed that we're still holding pretty steady, about 60-something viewers tonight, so I didn't run too many people off. All right. So a couple more minutes of stuff that I want to show. Let me switch back over here to, let's see, Acrobat. And let me open up a PDF. Just want to do a follow-up on clean harbors. Again, I'm no environmentalist, but I do want to make you guys aware of this. So I got this report emailed to me the other day. Clean Harbors down in Colfax is about to, or they're converting over to a contained burn system. Based off of the success of the burn unit or contained burn unit at Camp Minden and all that. So that is a good thing. They will be allowed to do about 561,700 pounds. You can see there in the highlighted text in the contained burn system, which will be a nearly zero emission system, hopefully. So that's good news for the folks down there in Colfax. I'll share this out on the Bossier Watch page as well. And if you see here in the yellow highlighted text that I have here, it talks about them transitioning to the contained burn unit. And again, that's down in Colfax, like we were talking about. Where has Mike Johnson been on all this? This is literally his congressional district. But let's see. And this particular group that did this report is calling for a closely monitored system and a daily and publicly available reporting system on those emissions, which they did have at Camp Minden. So it's absolutely feasible to do. And so hopefully they'll get all that implemented down there in Colfax, and those folks can get some relief from the pollution. Again, I'm no tree hugger, but it just pisses me off that you and I can't burn anything beyond wood products, like literally, and I know folks do it, and I'm fixing to step on some toes, but you're not supposed to burn your trash because it contains plastic and all sorts of other things and toxic materials, and you are legally, according to the LADEQ, you are not supposed to do that in the state of Louisiana. It's illegal, yet these guys can burn literally millions of pounds of toxic, highly toxic materials, and just open burn it and set it on fire out there. So anyway, glad to see that. All right. I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but I think, I pretty much covered everything. This was the Quickie version of the show. I don't think we've done a show that's been less than an hour, maybe since the inception of the show. Back several years ago. So does anybody have any questions before I sign off? Let me try to go back through the comments. Let's see. Paul Johnson says CNBC stated that Alex Jones was involved in a dispute with a CNN reporter a day before the ban. The dispute was live streaming on Alex's page on Periscope, and this happened after targeted the reporter alongside Jack Dorsey. Yeah, there were some reports of that, and very well could have been. Jack Dorsey could have got the board and to ban him on Twitter. If you have the gold, you make the rules, but now somebody else has the gold. And again, I'm happy to say Elon's putting back on Twitter just from the free speech standpoint, no matter how outlandish some of the stuff that he says is. Paul Black says, well, the government has their hands in social media, so yes, they do. Let's see here. David Johnson, has the Charter Commission met? Okay, so David, if you are in the comments here or you're watching the show, has the Charter Commission met yet? That's a very good question, Colonel Crockett. We'll have to do a little more digging on that. Let's see. Kara says interest rates are below 7%. Hey, that's a good thing. Let's see. Mr. Jeter, thank you again. Answering Colonel Crockett's question. The Charter Commission has not held a meeting. That's right, because Mr. Jeter is on that Charter Commission. So they have not met yet. So we'll be watching that closely. And Mr. Jeter, any information you would like to provide, or maybe we'll get you to come on the show one night as the Charter Commission continues and maybe report on those meetings. I would guess they're supposed to be relatively public, but I'm not really sure. But anyway, you're welcome to come on the show, here in the next few weeks or next month or so if you want to do it. Paul Johnson says the Texas AG is suing the feds for censoring free speech. And let's see. One more question from Larry James Hawkins. Thank you, Larry James. Who all has expressed interest in the Bossier City mayor's seat other than Tommy Chandler? Good question. Good question. We haven't really heard anybody other than, the rumors that Vince is Maggio's probably going to run. George Bryce says Pennell or Steve Pennell, whatever, however you say it. Maybe him. I don't know. Maybe he's going to be a contender, so we'll have to see. All right. I appreciate everybody watching. Hopefully Duke is safely traveling back north from his secret squirrel mission to save Louisiana. We'll get him we'll see if we can squeeze a little information out of him next week, and he can give us some hints on what he's been up to. All right. I appreciate everybody watching. We've maintained about 60 people so far across YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook, so I appreciate all of you watching. Again, not much to talk about, so we will see you again next week. Oh, don't forget, still got a few hats for sale. If you want to go to bossierwatch.org or bossierwatch.com, doesn't matter. The hats are for sale there, or just reach out to me on Facebook, and I'll be glad to get you a hat. Save a little bit of money if you're in Bossier and reach out to me directly or whatever. I need to get rid of some of these hats because I enjoy doing them, but my wife's trying to figure out why I'm in the hat business. Anyway, want to wish a Merry Christmas to everybody. We will probably have a show next week and do a quick one, and then we'll play it by ear, what we're going to do over the holidays and all that, and let everybody know. If you have email you need to share out to us, or information or documents, make a free Proton Mail account. Don't put any identifying information in it. Send an email to us from that Proton Mail account and send it to bossierwatch@protonmail.com. If you want to put your tinfoil hat on, download Proton VPN for free. Turn on the VPN. Come in from the Netherlands or Japan or wherever, and use an anonymous Proton Mail account, and then you're even more secure. We do read those. We get lots of information. Been a little slow lately, but then again, most of politics has. All right. So anyway, that's it for tonight. I appreciate everybody watching, and we will see y'all next week.